guys, my name is Krista Bianca and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about doing my second draft. So for starters, I'm going to talk a bit about my first draft. So I've had a question how I did it so quickly, and I've only got one word for you: persistence. So I was working on this first draft every single day. I was making sure that I was hitting that 1500 words each day. By the end of the week I was sitting over 10,000 words. If you multiply that by 5 weeks, that's 50,000 words. So you can see how easy it is to get to that word count if you just put in the work and you put in the time. I had a vision and I made sure that I got that vision onto paper. My first draft was in no way a complete product. It was all over the place. I had scenes everywhere, but I just got to a point where I couldn't work on it any longer. Now that I'm working on my second draft, it's a completely different process. So I started off with a big mishmash of scenes. So then when I first started my second draft, the first thing that I did was order all the scenes into what happens first in my book. I found that the scenes actually work quite well together. Even though they were all written separately, once they've been ordered, they actually seem so much more coherent. When I did separate them into chapters, I just separated them based on what I felt sounded right together. I did keep an eye out on the word count when I did this. I did do some research, and the research did say to put between 3,000 and 5,000 words in a chapter, but I feel like that's a bit long, and that's probably more for like a standard length of a 100,000 word book. And this is only going to be a shorter book, so I've gotten around 2,000, at least 2,000 words per chapter. I don't really like to pay too much attention to the word count because it's more about wherever the scenes fit. I don't want to be writing words just to make up that word count for each chapter and the words don't even make sense or even have a point being in my story. I'd rather have a story that has a structure than have a story that seems more consistent in the lengths of the chapters. Personally, I like reading books that have small chapters because I like finishing a chapter once I put a book down. So if I've only got a small amount of time to read a book, I feel more satisfied that I've actually finished the chapter, so then the next time I pick up the book I can just start on the next chapter. I don't know how many chapters I'm going to have or how much I've got because I haven't finished writing the ending. I don't even know what sort of word count this book is going to be at the end. I am aiming between 50 and 60,000 words, but I'm feeling like it probably will be in the top end. As I'm going through this, I'm finding that the word count's going higher and higher. So my overall plan for the second draft was to write and edit at the same time. I think I really underestimated how hard this is going to be. It's so different to my first draft process. With the first draft, you can just write whatever comes to mind, and if you don't like it, you can just ignore it and then just keep on writing. But with the second draft, you can't do that. These parts that you've written that you don't like, those are the parts that you need to pay attention to and to fix up. What's really crappy is that you're spending so much time on the parts of the book that you don't like, you feel really crappy about your work. And the parts that you really, really like hardly need any editing whatsoever, so you can't actually stay on the parts that you enjoy. I've also made sure in my second draft that I'm keeping an eye out on pacing. If I feel like a chapter doesn't have enough detail or if things are happening too quickly, I'm trying to add bulk to that chapter to give it more detail, to make it more real and lifelike. Any sentences that I don't like, I have been deleting, and there have been a lot of sentences that I have deleted. So it's like my word count will go down, then it'll go up again once I write more words, and then it's just a back and forth process. I'm not really focusing too much on the spelling and the grammar, but if I do come across a mistake in my work, I will fix it. That's more so for later on in my editing process. This process is focusing more so on editing the plot. If there's things that I've had in my first draft that don't work and that I've wanted to change, I'll change the scene altogether so it makes more sense. So it's really plot and character based, this second draft. I did mention in my previous goal setting video that I was going to do one chapter per day, but I've found myself pushing myself a lot lately, and if the chapters are short, I've been doing 2 chapters per day. I felt the need to be really productive and to just get things done. I had a conversation with my aunt the other day and she really put things into perspective. She did say, "Why are you rushing it?" And then I'm like, oh crap, yeah, maybe I am rushing it because I feel like I need to get things done. But then I've now slowed down that process. I'm just doing whatever I can do per day. I've just been putting so much pressure on myself to get this done, and then in the end it just causes more anxiety and self-doubt. That's another thing. Once you start the second draft, this is when all the self-doubt comes in. When you're writing your first draft, you can just write whatever and just keep going. If you don't like anything, you can just ignore it. In the second draft, you're paying attention to the parts of the work that you don't like. When you're rereading stuff that isn't as good, it makes you feel like you're not good enough, and you start to question whether you should be a writer at all. Then you've got this other writing that's great and that you're really proud of, and then you can't help but focus on the bad stuff. I have reread scenes and I've thought to myself, oh my god, did I actually write that? Like, that sounds really good. I'm really, really happy with that. And I think it's those moments that you keep going just because of that. I was rereading a scene the other day and it was between two of my characters, and it was a really emotional scene. And I actually found myself starting to tear up because I felt so strongly and deeply for these characters, and I felt their pain, and it was just so raw. And it's just, I really love reading stuff that I put my heart into, and then you can sort of feel that heart in my writing. And this is what makes me want to be a writer, like having these moments. During this process, I'm actually still coming up with ideas for my story. I've come up with a potential subplot for my second story, but I'm not really sure whether I'm going to pursue it in the second book or not. Like, I've inserted it very slightly into my work, so it's not too obvious, so I can really choose whether I can pursue it or not. But the problem with this subplot is that if I don't do this properly, I can really be going into territory that I don't know much about, and I'm really hesitant to do that because I really want to stay within the area that I'm more comfortable with. But it's definitely something to consider to write in the second book. I've also been coming up with all these ideas for the second book whilst doing this process, which is really good, and I really need to get some of those down on paper. If I do decide to pursue this subplot, I feel like there's going to be even more words in this book, and then the word count's just going to go over the top. So I'm not sure about it just yet, but it may even be worth it putting it in the second book. I still need to put my diary entries at the beginning of all the chapters. I haven't gotten around to that yet because I haven't finished writing the ending. I've actually had a problem when structuring my book. I've noticed that I've written too many diary entries and there's not enough chapters for the diary entries because they're not going from the first chapter to the last chapter. They're inserted in a certain part of the book, otherwise it wouldn't work. Because there's a time where they have to start and then they've got to reveal enough things before the end scene in the book, because there's all clues hidden within these diary entries and they're really crucial to the plot. I guess I need to maybe just try and condense some of these entries into one to try and get them in there. I might even have to delete some, but I feel like most of them are important and I will try and find a way to incorporate most of them in my writing. Along the way, I have noticed a difference between my earlier writing and my most recent writing. There is such a big difference in quality. My earlier writing, there's way too much dialogue and there's not enough detail, and I get really annoyed reading it, and I get really frustrated with myself when I'm reading it because those are the scenes that need the most work. Some of my most recent writing, I've found that it's good. I don't even know how I wrote it. It's got enough detail, it suits the book, it gives you backstory. I'm really, really happy with it. I'm finding it really hard to edit my old writing because, I don't know, it has something to do with the flow of the work. When I'm editing my most recent stuff, I find it really easy to build upon the detail I've already given. When you've got mostly dialogue, I find it hard to actually get inside the character's head and to give you enough detail in that scene. So that's what I really need to work on. I'm 3/4 of the way through my second draft already. I'm sitting on around 45,000 words. But I feel like this is not going to be the end. I can see a third draft coming after this before I give my work to the beta readers. I don't want to give work to other people that I'm not 100% happy with. There are some chapters that I'm happy with, but then there are some parts of my work that still need a lot of work. Sorry about my rambling. This is just such a really hard and frustrating process. I don't think I realised what I was getting myself into, but I still feel like if I push myself, I can get this done. I know now how these people feel, that the ones that start a story and then they just go off to the next story, because sometimes it gets really hard and taxing doing this work. Even writing parts of the story that are boring, or to actually get to the nitty-gritty of your writing and to really focus on this story and to get it done takes a lot of work. It does take some of the fun out of the work, but in the end, I think that it'll all be worth it, and then in some months' time, it's all going to be done, and then you're going to be glad that you've stuck to this work and that you've done it. I hope that I will be. Are any of you in the process of writing your first book or doing your second draft? Comment down below. I'd like to hear your stories. And if you're interested in more writing videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.